Okay, if you're only feeding your brain the nutrients that it needs, are you doing enough? Hi, I'm Bernice Hunt, and I am a brain health specialist. I work with women just like you who are starting to notice some memory challenges, and I help you to stay sharp so that as you age, you can still travel, have fun with your grandkids, and experience new adventures without missing a beat. As a wellness coach for over 12 years, I spend a lot of time talking about good nutrition and a proper diet. And those things are very, very important for your brain. But if you want your brain to last as long as the rest of your body, it's not enough. You've got to not only feed your brain properly, but you've got to take care of it properly as well. So did you catch my last video? A few days ago, I talked about preparing your brain for the future. And we're going to go along with that theme today as well, because we're going to talk about how you should be nurturing your brain to make it better and stronger and healthier for a lifetime. Okay, so today I'm going to be focusing on three terms, all right? Neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, and neurotoxins, okay? But first, we're going to talk about what affects those three things. Basically, your brain's environment, all right? Because your brain needs to be stimulated, it needs to be protected, okay? That's how it thrives. All right, in education, we call it enrichment. In education, we were always encouraged to do enrichment lessons, okay? And what that's like putting the icing on the cake, all right? You're going to not only give the lesson, but then you're also going to encourage discussion, discovery, curiosity, creativity, okay? You're going to get those minds and those little guys working and trigger more growth and development. Okay, I hope my house is not on fire or hear a fire engine. I don't know if you guys do, but I'm ignoring it, okay, until I smell smoke. All right, so enrichment lessons is what we do. We're engaging and nurturing the brain, all right? Because that's how our new neurons survive and thrive, okay? You want to give your neurons physical stimulation, mental, social, spiritual, purposeful, sounds like engagement, right, guys? Yes, you want to set that environment for your brain cells, all right? It's the best environment it can possibly have at any age, not just as a child, at any age. That's the environment you're looking for, okay? And to have a very good environment, not only do you need to know what you should be giving it, you also need to know what you should not be giving it, okay? It works two ways, okay? Which brings us to those three neurals: neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, and neurotoxins. Okay, so let's talk first about neuroplasticity. That is your brain's ability to mold, reshape itself, to reorganize itself, okay? And it can do that, guys. It can be strengthened and improved. I've told you before about the book that I read about the boy with half a brain. Half his brain was removed as a child, and he still was able to function. He was able to do everything anybody else was going to do because that half a brain reorganized, reshaped, remolded itself to accomplish the things it needed to do, okay? It showed an example of neuroplasticity, and all our brains do that, guys. It is very possible, okay? So neuroplasticity is one thing we want to encourage and enhance our brain to be able to do, okay? The other thing is neurogenesis, all right? Neurogenesis is when our brain renews itself, it grows new brain cells, and it also upgrades, okay? It upgrades itself, all right? That's neurogenesis, and it's always happening, guys. At any age, it's always happening. It never stops. However, the speed or the pace or the rate at which it occurs differs, okay, depending on what you're doing for your brain, all right? So with neurogenesis, though, they say that you can increase its speed, you can increase the pace 3 to 5 times more at any age. Okay, whatever the rate is that you have now, it can be increased and improved by the things that you do and don't do with your brain, okay? And the experts say the sooner you get started with upping that pace, the better long term, okay? In fact, some experts are telling us that the rate of neurogenesis, the speed at which the new brain cells are growing, may be the single most important thing to consider when determining the quality of your life. Just think the quality of your life, not the length of your life, but the quality of your life. The rate of your neurogenesis may be the single most important factor determining that, okay? So we want that to be happening. When we talk about neurogenesis, we're talking about two parts. We're talking about the growth of new brain cells, and we're also talking about the survival rate of those cells, because they say 60 to 70% of those new brain cells are subject to die when they're not given the proper environment. Okay, you need a rich environment for them to survive. But if you're giving them that rich environment, 90 to 100% of them will survive. And that's what we're talking about, guys. We want those brain cells to not only grow, but to survive. Okay, so what are we talking about when we're talking about a rich environment? The engagement things we talked about before. Yeah, we're talking about social, we're talking about spiritual, we're talking about mental. Guys, we're also talking about physical, we're talking about purposeful. Okay, all those things that we talked about for engagement plus physical, okay, is the environment that we want to create for those new brain cells. All right. We know that active learning, creativity, discovery, all those things generate that neurogenesis. All right. So third neural is the neurotoxins. All right. You know where I'm going with this, but I'm not basically talking about food. Not right now. I'm not talking about food, and I'm really not talking about environmental pollutants, although we know those are extremely important, and we should definitely pay attention to that and avoid those things as much as we can. But today I want to talk about 4 other ones that you may not be attending to as well. Okay, these are also neurotoxins. They're destroying your brain cells, and they are damaging your brain. Okay, number 1, chronic inflammation. All right, inflammation in your body. Okay, we all know about that. We know that it tends to increase as we age, and we know that it has a lot of sources. Okay, did you know obesity is one source? Excess fat is a source. Okay, you know about the smoking, you know about the alcohol. Okay, you probably may or may not know about your high blood glucose. Okay, insulin resistance. That's a factor for increased inflammation. Okay, and also your toxic chemicals, and also different types of stress. Okay, and we know that the best practices for that is to work through your diet with anti-inflammatory diets, anti-inflammatory foods, okay, and managing your stress levels, those kind of things, okay, for inflammation. So inflammation is something that you need to attend to and be aware of, and just don't let it ride, okay? Number 2, chronic stress. We all know about chronic stress. That's ongoing stress. I mean, there's times, you're going to be stressed. Stress comes and goes, whatever. Some stress is good stress, okay, comes and goes, but chronic, ongoing stress. We're talking about, do you know that can be appearing in your mouth? Gum disease generates chronic stress. So that's why you need to address your dental hygiene, okay? Yeah. Chronic stress shrinks your brain. I know people don't like to hear this. It shrinks your brain, especially your hippocampus, which is your memory center and where that neurogenesis isn't occurring. They say that the hippocampus is the organ where it shrinks the most. That's the area of your brain that gets the most shrinkage. Your memory and your learning, okay? Yeah, so we need to deal with this stress where it's coming from emotions, relations, physical, wherever it's coming from. we need to address that because it is really affecting our brain. All right. Number 3, physical assaults. By that, I'm talking about head trauma, talking about strokes, either minor strokes or major strokes, okay? And I'm also talking about chemical neurotoxins like mercury. That's the number 2 neurotoxin in the whole world, mercury, and lead. And there's other ones as well. But mercury and lead, those are some biggies. And when we're talking about children, the damage is 10 times as great. And they say even a little bit of mercury is destroying neurons, okay? So we want to be really careful with that. Also with head trauma, did you know that even one concussion doubles your risk for Alzheimer's or other brain diseases later in life? Even one concussion will double it. So take that into consideration when you're doing sports and things, even with your kids. Even one concussion will double that risk, okay? Those things are not to be taken lightly. Physical assaults, head traumas, okay? And the last one is deprivation, okay? Deprivation, when you are not receiving those things in your environment socially, social interaction, okay? You're not receiving stimulation, new experiences, you know, when you're deprived of those things, and especially like in prison or in the hospital or something like that, definitely you need to work on not depriving them of those things, okay? But even just in regular life, that's why during COVID, some people were having some issues because they started depriving themselves of some of those things. And deprivation, they said it practically stops neurogenesis. It's still happening, but the rate is so slow. If they say it practically stops neurogenesis, okay? So we don't want to be depriving people, depriving our children, depriving our elderly or aged or seniors, depriving anyone, okay, of interacting, of socializing, of having communications, of playing games, of stimulating their brain, of getting new experiences, going places, doing things, all of those stimulative type of things we don't want to deprive anyone of. Okay, bottom line, you don't want the neurotoxins to undo what you were doing that was good for your brain. Okay, it's like pushing on the accelerator and then pushing on the brake at the same time. You don't want to undo the good that you were doing, all right? So we need to take all those things into consideration when we're talking about taking care of our brain, which leads me to what I do, okay? Because all those things are easier said than done. And that's where my partner stuff comes in, guys. That's where I'm here. That's what I do, okay? My job is to encourage and support and to educate and to inform, all right? And to help you stay on point, okay? And those are all the things that Partners Club does. And I'm talking about specifically right now because I'm having a special discount launch time. It's happening for a few more weeks to the end of September. So go to my website if you haven't already, keepyourbrainsharp.com. Go to the coaching section and you'll find the Partners Club, and you'll be able to see a video and find out more about it and hopefully join up. And we can get this thing rolling because your brain's destiny is in your hands.